The speed of trust is a concept that I've just really latched onto, especially in the last few years. Thinking about it specifically from a workplace standpoint, it comes from a book called The Speed of Trust, written by Stephen M.R. Covey. And he basically makes a simple contention in the book that teams or even individual relationships that are high in trust is actually a dividend for that individual relationship or for that team. That's because when trust is high, usually things take less time to get done and things cost less. You have more open conversation. People are bringing up issues, bringing up questions when they have them, and they're just not afraid to say what they want to say, even if they have to stick their neck out there a little bit to say so. It's that type of environment, so therefore things get done quickly. So it makes a lot of business sense to have a high level of trust and to invest in building out that trust. In contrast, teams or individual relationships with a low level of trust, it's actually a tax on their organization or on their relationship, because things take longer and things cost more. And that can be found in just hesitation to bring up questions or issues. Hey, I need clarification on something, but I'd prefer not to say anything because last time I asked this question, somebody got mad at me or somebody was laughing or mocking the fact that I had a question. I might not bring up issues as due to hesitation for other reasons as well. Maybe I feel like I'm the new person, so I don't have the authority to bring something up. We just haven't built any trust level yet. Sometimes the environment isn't so welcoming to dissenting opinions or other perspectives. Can you accelerate trust? We believe that you can. I don't think you can fake trust, but you can definitely accelerate it. Even if I'm not in a leadership position now, but I'm on that journey or that path, the ways that I can accelerate trust are, number one, just doing what I say I'm going to do. Number two, showing that I'm trustworthy to people. If they're letting me in on meetings, making sure that I'm an active participant in those meetings, making sure that I'm bringing something to the table at all times. If I'm a leader and I'm in any sort of leadership position and I want to accelerate trust, I want to go out of my way to make people feel like they're part of the team, like they're an active contributor to the team, especially if there are new people joining my organization or my team. I want to get them up to speed as fast as possible and let them know that you're here because we need to get your opinions and your questions. I need to create that environment for them. And sometimes it's as simple as asking questions unrelated to work. We can build trust by getting to know people on a human level. Sometimes it's related to work, and I need to lean into what worries people, what they're concerned about, where they need clarification, and give them sometimes beyond that an opportunity to provide me ideas. Hey, if you were in charge here, what's one thing you would do to make a difference or to fix some of the issues that you're seeing? Like when people know that you're legitimately interested in their opinion or what they have to say, that builds a level of familiarity and trust, which then makes it less awkward for anybody to question each other, to be fully honest with each other, and to bring up ideas that could help the organization. Trust is a tax. I've got two examples that come to mind. One is specifically from a client we've worked with in the recent past. One of them is in pop culture. So we'll start big picture, pop culture. If anyone's seen recently the Woodstock 99 documentary, there was all kinds of lack of trust between employees and the leadership who were running that event. Now, there were 22-year-old employees who were on the younger side. They were trying to question the executives and try to speak a little bit of common sense into some of these outlandish ideas that were happening. One of which being a 22-year-old got on the radio and said, I know that, I might not have the authority to say this, but it's probably not a good idea to give 100,000 candles to people during a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert after 2 or 3 days and everybody is running out of water and tired and angry and potentially inebriated. What happened on the other end of that radio was the executive saying, you don't have the authority to be on this line, and just clicking off their radio. Next thing you know, all these candles were handed out to a crowd, and there were 30-foot fires about 10 minutes later. And there were semi-trucks being burned to a crisp, and there were propane tanks exploding and causing all kinds of damage and just mass chaos. If there had been a level of trust or an environment where it's okay if somebody has a legitimate question or concern to bring it up, then that probably could have been avoided. There might have been common sense ruling the day rather than I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do what I tell you to do and you don't question me. There were some real life consequences in that situation. There's always something more we could do. When we're in coaching situations with clients or when we're in training courses, a lot of times you hear people bring up issues and bring up the issue and dive into the issue and just stick on, here are all the reasons why my life is difficult. Well, in reality, there's always something individually we could do if we feel a strong sense of ownership. We can find different channels to communicate with somebody. I can find a different way to communicate with somebody within the same channel, maybe a different approach. Maybe I soften my approach. Maybe I adjust it based on who my receiver is of the message. But there's always something we can do to either take more ownership, to provide the idea, to ask for what we need, and in some cases demand what we need from others to be successful. If we need clarification, I shouldn't say, hey, I sent an email to this person, but they didn't get back to me, so therefore it's not my fault. If I have that ownership mentality, I might send an email, and if people don't get back to me, I might follow up with a phone call, then send a Teams message, then go stop by that person's office or desk to check in with them. That can get kind of extreme with all the ways we can communicate with each other. But the bottom line is, individually, if we can get to the point within an organization where everybody down to the intern feels a sense of ownership for the things that they touch within that organization, then you're gonna have a lot of people walking around trying to get things done rather than point fingers. Part of the reason it's so critical to take ownership is because sometimes a lack of trust is nobody's fault. An executive team might not intend to have a low trust environment with their team. The team may not intend to have that divide between them and the executive team or the leadership team. Sometimes it just happens because people are not intentional about it. They don't call it out and say, I want to create a high trust environment. If we're not doing it on purpose, sometimes it doesn't happen, or two different departments or two different levels of an organization can drift apart over time. We saw this in one of our clients where there just was this natural divide between executives and middle managers, or executives and entry-level team members who are on the ground doing the work for their customers. And in this case, that divide just naturally got bigger over time. And then for every idea that people brought up to the executive team that didn't get fixed or didn't get worked on, that increased the divide even more. And so in situations like that, what happened with this client is that the executive team realized it. They had to admit it first that the trust level is not what we want here at the organization. And then one by one, they made promises and kept those promises. They also asked for feedback from the rest of the organization and then took some action on that feedback. And when they couldn't take action on the feedback, all they needed to do was circle back and let the rest of the organization know, here's what we've done so far this quarter based on your feedback. Here's what we weren't able to do. Here's why we weren't able to do it. Some things we are going to get to. It's just going to take some time. A lot of times to build trust and to bridge some of those gaps, all it takes is for someone to know that you're taking a look at the feedback they're providing. There was ownership on the manager and the entry-level employee side as well, because they needed to be the ones to continue to bring up issues. You can't just complain about something in private. You've got to be willing to bring it up. And once those two subtle things were changed, being more aware and bringing up issues when you actually have issues versus sitting on them because it's more comfortable to do so. And then the executive team realizing that and starting to make some of these changes and prove it. We're not just saying it, but we're also going to prove that we really value our employees. The result was just this massive success story with this organization, and people feeling like, I'm going to be stuck in this position forever. Within 3 months or 6 months, them feeling like, oh, we're on the right path here as an organization. People putting in their 2 weeks and then canceling their 2 weeks, and 2 years later are an actual manager or leader at that organization. Pretty amazing stuff happened. And almost all of it was related to trust.